a US aspect to it, and amid the ongoing trade war between the European Union and the United States, Industry Minister Marc Ferracci has stated that France is demanding greater firmness from the European Union in its tariff negotiations. Trade negotiations between Washington and Brussels are continuing ahead of the August 1st deadline. This comes as US President Donald Trump has vowed to impose 30% tariffs on nearly all goods imported from the European Union. Both sides are reportedly looking to carve out exemptions for key sectors such as aviation or pharmaceuticals. While speaking on EU-US trade talks, Marc has said that the French industry is united behind the EU's position. Let's listen in.
Ça signifie également mobiliser des outils qui n'ont pas encore été utilisés jusqu'à présent, et en particulier ce que l'on appelle l'outil anti-coercition. C'est un outil qui est de nature non tarifaire, mais qui peut se traduire par des contrôles à l'export, qui peut se traduire par des restrictions à la publicité en ligne pour les plateformes numériques, qui peut se traduire par un certain nombre d'outils qui sont nécessaires aujourd'hui pour se mettre dans une posture de négociation qui soit plus ferme et qui soit plus crédible. Nous avons besoin, au fond, de risques. Nous faisons tout pour être dans une posture d'échange, de dialogue, mais à un moment ou à un autre, il faut aussi mettre sur la table des options qui permettent à la négociation de se concrétiser. Et je pense que, de ce point de vue...
Well, once again with us, Andrew Latham, thank you for staying with us. Of course, trade deadlines looming and trade discussions have been ongoing since the start of April and Trump's Liberation Day tariff announcements. But here we're hearing from a key nation within the European Union about firmness in these talks. What message is that sending to the Trump administration?
One intentional and one unintentional. I mean, the idea that France would work through the European Union to protect its export industry. And it's willing, the French are willing to accept some increase in tariffs, by the way, but not with respect to what they consider to be strategic sectors: automobiles, wines and spirits, pharmaceuticals, the usual suspects. So they're willing to do a deal, but they think, well, certainly Macron and his government seem to believe that the only way to get that deal is to play hardball, to use an Americanism. That remains to be seen. The second observation is Trump's deadlines are worthless because they're forever being deferred and delayed. So the August 1st thing, it could end up being bumped down the road quite a bit, but that's parenthetical. The other element here that's really interesting is the Germans don't agree with this. Chancellor Merz wants a deal. He wants a deal fast. He wants a deal that will be better than the worst possible outcome, but he's willing to make compromises that the French are not. So we're seeing intra-European Union friction and tensions in terms of how to deal with Donald Trump and his tariff threats, etc. One is, let's just do a deal and put this to bed. And the other one is, let's fight like heck until we get the best possible deal, and then maybe we'll put it to bed. And of course, the French being pitted against the Germans, well, historically, that's not unusual. But they are at the center of constellations of EU countries, and it remains to be seen exactly who ends up being in which camp. So, big geopolitical picture. Also domestic politics in France. Macron's government is in some trouble, not particularly popular, so standing up for French industry and French exports makes him look better, like a national champion. And of course, the American domestic pieces that Trump's tariff deadlines never seem to hold, are not firm, let's put it charitably.
Yes, and Andrew, I want to delve deeper into that division that you're talking about potentially in Europe. Of course, this is a unique situation, a 27-nation bloc who all have their own industries which could be affected by these tariffs. Also, with the EU looking at potential areas of sort of relief and sanctions, sorry, not sanctions, tariffs that will be minimal compared to that base 30% rate. How do those discussions happen internally to then be formulated in a united front with a US administration who, let's be honest, has been very frank and very firm that they're looking for the best deal that they can get possible?
My sense is that European Union policy is a function of lowest common denominator because everybody more or less has to agree. And everybody's willing to moderate or modulate their position to some extent, but there are serious red lines beyond which Hungary won't shift, and Germany won't shift, and France won't shift. And so we've got a lowest common denominator policy coming out at the level of the European Union. And then after that, then you've got the European Union and you've got Brussels and Washington in negotiations. And again, my sense is it's going to be the lowest common denominator. I know the French think they can quote unquote win. Donald Trump always thinks he can win, although he's a little more inclined to do a deal, any deal, as long as it meets his basic needs. And so I think, my suspicion is, my working hypothesis is, we're going to get lowest common denominator out of Brussels, and then Washington and Brussels, another lowest common denominator. It will probably be enough to satisfy everybody. Nobody will get exactly what they want. But Trump has proven that he's willing, with respect to Canada, for example, he's basically let Canadian imports in duty-free as long as they're compliant with the USMCA agreement, or as they call it in Canada, the Canada-US-Mexico trade agreement. So he's really somewhat flexible despite his fiery rhetoric. He really is into doing deals. And I think that logic is likely to hold true with respect to Washington and Brussels. Once Brussels gets its act together and they sit down and start talking across the table with Washington, I think as long as Trump can come out looking good, he's willing to compromise. And as long as the European Union looks good at the end of